Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show, and let's get started.
If you should awaken, I will be there when you wake from your lovely
Welcome back. Today we have a very interesting, a very special show. Simply because last night, or actually I just left, a concert at the Hollywood Bowl where it was a tribute to Quincy Jones. A variety of artists were there, and especially Stevie Wonder. And I watched Stevie Wonder talk for a minute, and I had not seen Stevie Wonder in a while, and I'm a fan of Stevie Wonder because I like the way he thinks, not only his artistry, but the way he believes and he feels that he can do things to help humanity. He mentioned that music is one of the keys to helping human beings reach a higher level. However, I remember back when I was young and I listened to Stevie and I would go to his concerts, and back then music was beautiful. Not that it's not beautiful today, but we listened to the words and we tried to mimic the words within the lyrics. We tried to imagine that we were these people. We were romantic like the singers were, where they're not like that today. So I understand what Stevie Wonder was trying to do, but my fear is that it's not working and it's going in the opposite direction. I'm here to raise the spiritual level of people. I think that's the best thing I can do for society before I leave. One of the things that I'm interested in is I've been telling individuals that I believe I could cure atheism in 10 minutes. 10 minutes at the 15 minutes at the most. By the time I get through talking about atheism, atheism will be over. Agnosticism as well. Atheism, you don't believe in God. Agnostic means you have no idea of, so you haven't given it any thought and you just don't have an opinion. We can end both of them right here, right now. Atheists. Let me say this about you. I've watched you in debates. I've watched you being committed to atheism for years and years, and I will have to admit, you are very intelligent people. It takes a lot of intelligence to break down religion and then decide that you don't want to be a part of it or an agreement to this. It takes a lot. It takes a very intelligent people to understand that, the whole thing, to the point where you have decided you didn't want to be a part of it or understanding of it whatsoever. Now, I'm the kind of person who has a very difficult time listening to preachers. I have a hard time talking to preachers of gospels simply because they're telling me the same thing that I heard in vacation Bible school between the ages of 5 and 8. Tell me something new, tell me something different, tell me something that I can add to what I already know, then I can respect that. But you're telling the same stories over and over. Now, I'm not speaking against church. We need church. We need more people to go to church, but we need people to go to church and learn more, not learn less. A friend of mine is a doctor in theology, he went to seminary school. Now, these individuals I love talking to because people who have gone to seminary school understand the things that I'm saying. They've studied the same things I have. We understand. You go to seminary school, then you learn it all, and you decide which individual aspect of a ministry you want to be, but you still have the exposure. If I start talking about the tablets of Sumer, you're going to know who I'm talking about. When I start mentioning people from the Bible, not from the Bible, but pre-Bible, you're going to know who I'm talking about. First of all, religions have decided to convince people that the Bible is the Word of God, and it's not. I'm not going to say it's not true. It is, well, let me put it this way. It is the Word of God. However, God and the creator of the universe are two separate things entirely. This is what you have to understand. Let me talk to you atheists for a second. This is your problem. You cannot reconcile the stories that come out of biblical teaching. You can't reconcile a God that does the things, some of the things that you have been studying in church. You can't reconcile that. You can, if you debate with a biblicist, you will win every time, because what the biblicist is going to tell you are things that are, I don't even have time to break it all down, but let it suffice to say that the biblical gods are flawed. And they're flawed in such a way that it's very easy for an atheist to point those flaws out. God is not supposed to be flawed. However, we have a problem here. We have an issue here where this particular God is flawed. The truth of the matter is, an atheist, if you can separate God from the creator of the universe, then you will understand this whole thing. Your battle, you've been wasting all your time, all your life fighting against the biblical gods, whereas you've never come to know the creator of the universe. The creator of the universe is something that is beyond our. We can understand it enough to study it and to understand it and to try to understand it and love it. The problem is we spend too much time on scriptures trying to follow and understand those that don't make any sense anyway. The reason the Gospels, let me put it quite bluntly, the stories in the Gospels that you find to be, that you believe are truth, well, actually, those are stolen stories. The biggest stories, biblical story, your creation of mankind, the Garden of Eden story. I'm not going to even mess with Moses yet, but the thing about these stories They've been around. The Bible has been around for 2,000 and 3,000 years. However, those biblical stories, those great stories, have been taken from manuscripts that are hundreds of thousands of years old. You can't have God, who is writing a Bible, and the words are supposed to be coming from him, and then you find these same words and these same stories in manuscripts from the ancient Sumerians. When they started digging around Iraq, they found the civilization of the ancient Babylonians. They dug a little farther, they found the Assyrians. Assur-bani-pal II. Once they dug, they found his library. In his library, there were tablets in cuneiform, between 30,000 and 40,000 tablets. We're going to learn more about the creation of mankind and how life was as we go along. 10 years from now, we'll know more than we know now. But what we do know now is that the same stories that are in the Bible are in these stories, except they're told much better. Adam and Eve in the Bible took one day. By the time that day was over, a snake came in and had already ran Eve out of the place. Well, in the Sumerian tablets, it took 100 years to make Adam move. And after Adam moved, they created Adam. And this process took a long time, and they explain exactly how this process happened. Now, if you just want to believe that because your parents told you to believe that, you go right ahead. There's nothing wrong with that. But you atheists, you need to put some thought into this. You need to understand how come the biblical stories are so flawed when all you really need to do is study. Go back and do a little more studying, and then you will find that there's nothing flawed about the creator of the universe. So the problem, you atheists, is not the fact that God is wrong or God doesn't exist. The problem is you got God wrong. And imagine being a minister for 40, 50 years and telling the same story over again and over again and over again, and you have God wrong. The God that you're speaking of was flesh and blood, lived and died. The creator of the universe does not die. He is the creator of the fabric. Atheists, we will end atheism right here by simply saying this. When we are talking about God from a perspective of the creator of the universe, what we are telling you is that this creator of the fabric of the universe, you can't really give it, I don't want to give it a specific name, because atheists, you can call it whatever you want, but it is something that you can wrap your mind around. It is something that you can study. It is something that brought us all of science, all of quantum physics. It brought us everything. The fact that you can walk out and stand on solid ground, that means that this thing here where we are exists. So you know it exists. The creator of all of this is whatever you want to call it, atheist. Atheist, you can call it whatever you want. And that would be your God. It doesn't have to fit into the biblical narrative. What is important is that however you see the fabric of the universe and whatever you can put together, you're smart enough to put something together. You're smart enough to understand that there is a designer. There is a process to all of this. There is a beginning and an end. And there is also principles that will help us understand these things. Your argument is with the biblical gods. Your argument is that they did not exist, because the problem is not that they didn't exist. The problem is this: they weren't gods. Or basically we just have the word God misunderstood. God does not mean the creator of the universe. Once you get that through, then you can understand that your God is whatever you conceive creation to be. Atheists, there is a creator of something. There's a creator of something. There's a creator of the fabric of this universe. Later on, we will get into different aspects of that fabric. Different aspects, but we have to agree that this does exist and there is a supreme designer. We have found too many things that make logic out of life. And life, the fact that life progresses, that means that there is a designer. That means there is a designer because it progresses. It doesn't jump this way and then jump that way and then jump this way and back and forth into a ball of confusion. And there is a structure here. We have to learn the structure. We have found out many things over the last 100 years in science. We found out that God, there's nothing that a scientist can discover that God hasn't already created. For one thing, so basically, all I'm saying to you is that atheism is simply a misunderstanding between the verbiage between biblical gods and the Creator. Let's put it this way. Atheists, you have the biblical gods, and then we have whatever you want to call the Creator. Atheists, you need to come up with your own word for the Creator of the fabric of the universe. The problem with you atheists is you like to argue about the fact that the biblical gods didn't exist. We need to get past that. I understand. The biblical gods are not what they're cut out to be. So make up your own name. One of you great atheists, well-known atheists, come up with a name for the Creator of the fabric of the universe. Use that name. Love that name. Understand what that name means. I'm afraid you like arguing with biblicists. You like going back and forth. You like winning. And you're going to win. You're going to win an argument that says you are right and they're wrong. But you can just make yourself right. Call the Creator of the fabric of the universe anything you want. Describe it any kind of way you want. Make it what you want it to be, because and include all the fabulous things and all the great things. Ask your spirit to help you come up with a name. Let me give you an example. How about if you call it it doesn't make any difference. Call it your mother's name. I don't care. It doesn't matter. What we're talking about here is semantics. What we're talking about here is what the Creator of the universe is to you. For you agnostics who don't know and feel like, well, I don't know what's out there, so in my opinion, I don't know what. That just means you need to do a little more studying. Study a little more. Edify yourself. Raise your spiritual level so you can understand that there is something out there. Because we cannot, like I said, when I was listening to Stevie Wonder, and I realized that just creating music and sounds is not going to be enough for us. We have to increase the level of our spirituality, which basically means we need to understand more about the Creator, more about people. We need to understand each other. We have to stop trying to be addicted to the argument and to the debate. When you get an atheist in a debate against a biblicist, it's basically it's just going to be a ball of confusion. First you have your biblicists. We can just start off with the Catholic Church, for instance. The Catholic Church put within it all the ideologies that it wanted to, all the ideologies, and forced people to agree with them or burn at the stake. It's like either you believe this or you will die. And then after that, the Church of England took over and they changed the Bible to suit their endeavor. Spiritualists. We are people who represent spirits all. However, I am a black person. I identify with black people. And something very curious and very odd about us. We will take the very religion. Let me talk about enslaved black people, for instance. They call us enslaved black people simply because we were people who were put into slavery. That's why we're enslaved. However, when mankind was created by the Elohims of the book of Genesis, they created us to be slaves. That's why they created us. They weren't enslaved, they were slaves. They were slaves created to work the mines and do laborious tasks for the Anunnaki. Humankind was created into slavery and we worked our way out of it. But it will always be a part of our DNA. There will always be a time where somebody will try to talk somebody into doing that again because it was done before. It's on our DNA. We've grown out of it. Enslaved people are basically enslaved by people with a DNA that have slavery in their background. So what we want to do is just be fair. In the group home business, there's a term in there that says good enough for me, which basically means whatever is good enough for you, apply that to other people. Last week, I left a chapter out called The Seven Tribes, and I wanted to get back to that. I want to do that, and then we're going to end the show. And once I watch this show, I will decide whether I've gotten anywhere. It won't be until I watch the show that I decide if I put any kind of a dent in what I want to say about atheism. I may not have said what I wanted to say or I needed to say. I may not have hit it hard enough. I may not have put the points in. But once I examine it, then we will see where we go from there. However, let's get through I believe it's chapter 23, actually, which is the Seven Tribes.
Ungodly Gods, Audiobook 2, Chapter 23, The Seven Tribes.
In 3 short months, all of the wandering Igijais had been accounted for. They were placed in temporary housing until the Anunnaki had began the next part of their master plan. The plan was to separate the Igijais into 7 or 8 groups, placing them on islands or continents as far apart from one another as possible. This would give the Anunnaki a chance to further their genetic experiments with the goal of bringing into existence a species that would surpass all previous creation endeavors. At least this was the goal of the Minister of Science Enki. This was in coordination with the soon-to-be clay-born race of beings that would be created by Belatili, the womb goddess, and the midwife Mami. The Igigi decided between them which tribes would travel with which group, as they would soon depart. They would then board onto ocean ships to travel to the far corners of the earth. Once they have settled in for a while, the Anunnaki would slowly begin to modify their genome to advance the evolution of each species. Lucy and her party would travel on foot to the large continent that would one day become the cradle of the new civilization, Central Africa. Another to the island of Pan, later to be called Japan, and another to the land of Kim. They would also travel to a place that would later be called Mexico, and Australia, and to the Americas and to Greater Asia. This experiment would be perfect because of the extreme isolation and the possibilities of growth. They could also be closely monitored of said growth. In the Western Hemisphere, the great landmasses that would one day be the Americas offered many advantages as well as the opportunity to perform individual experiments to hasten the growth of species. As barbaric as this may sound, this is how it was, and this is how we came to be. To Northern Africa, they would take back the Igijais that they rounded up there in the beginning because They had already adapted to the sands in the deserts, and to the caves. Each tribe would proudly have a leader that just so happened to be an offspring of Lucy. 5 of the 7 were now verbal. Some went to the continent of Australia and parts of Asia respectively, the other to a more jungle and or forest-like environment. The first science vessels to leave the land of Mesopotamia to perform the experiments on the Igigis embarked during the second ark cycle of Noah, and would arrive soon thereafter. Gene splicing had already been perfected by Enki, and all 7 tribes were ready to be what was reconciled to be the enhancements. In these trials, there would be taken 100 eggs, introducing them to 100 spermatozoa of a similar yet slightly altered genome. Once the eggs were reimplanted, birth would soon occur and the offspring would be studied at great lengths in the attempt to reach closer perfection of said primate. First there were the Australopithecus afarensis, then the Igigi would begin to integrate their genome to that species of primate. Other such primates as the mandrill, the macaque, the chimpanzees as well as gorilla, orangutan and most often used bonobo. These offsprings were created by many different species. Some would die out while the stronger would live to further evolve. 4 million years of interbreeding would it take to create such species as Paranthropus ethiopicus, Homo rudolfensis, Homo habilis, Homo ergaster. After 2 million years, Paranthropus robustus, Paranthropus boisei. After 1 million years, Homo erectus, Heidelbergensis, Homo neanderthalensis. And there it would not end. The Anunnaki would return after the flood and continue to attempt to create their ultimate masterpiece. They began mixing their deoxyribonucleic acid with that of Homo neanderthalensis and Homo erectus. The Neanderthal would arrive and create a stronger species, then the Homo sapien, Cro-Magnon, and last but not least, the Homo sapien sapien.
Thank you for coming. Please like and subscribe to the channel, because the next show we're going to do is the creation of Eve. And I have a very interesting chapter called The Claibornes. Thank you for coming.
Subscribe and push the like button.